What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Shantavia Show, where my goal is to help you start a business based on your life's vision. This ain't gonna be your daddy's business advice. I'm laser focused on entrepreneurship in the 21st century, vision, and breaking the traditional mold. If you can get with that, you can get with me. Be sure to visit shantavia.com for more episodes, blog posts, and other content. Thank you for listening. The show starts now. What's up, everybody? I'm Shantavia Johnson, and this is another episode of the Shantavia Show, where I want to inspire you to build a brand, business, and life that you love. And y'all, I am so excited to have Harold Hughes here with me today. Welcome, Harold.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Oh, man. So you just got into town.
Just landed.
Right, and you came over here. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so let me tell the people a little bit about who you are, but I know I won't do it justice.
It'll probably be perfectly fine. Probably more than.
So feel free to interject, Harold. So Harold Hughes is the founder and CEO of Bandwagon Incorporated. And Bandwagon Incorporated, tell us a little bit about what they do, Harold.
Yeah, so Bandwagon Fan Club is the full name, but we just go by Bandwagon. And at the end of the day, I care a lot about community. I love live events. I love concerts. I love festivals. I love sports. And we want to help make sure that when fans go to those events, that they're getting a curated experience. None of this off-the-shelf, one-size-fits-all marketing and type of experience. And so Bandwagon is a fan identity and attendee analytics company. And by using some data and proprietary tech that we built, we help these event organizers know who's in the venue on the day of the event so they can curate your experience. So if you're a family taking your kid to a ball game, if you're an executive going to a festival, we're able to help their marketing team, sponsorship teams do a better job of curating those events for you.
Really, really cool. Thank you. So I was not going to do it justice, so thank you for explaining that. So before starting Bandwagon, you were in corporate America for almost a decade or so.
Definitely.
In barcoding, RFID, and two-tier distribution.
Yes.
Whatever all that means.
The gist of that was I had to find a way to explain what I did to my mom. And so it was really like, hey, Mom, if you ever go to Piggly Wiggly or the grocery store, you see like the things at the checkout lane. So the scanner or the receipt printer. And she said, yes. I said, okay, so we don't make those products and we also don't install them. We're the people who are in between that. So we're that two-tier distribution partner that works with the manufacturer of the products as well as the installer or the system integrator to make sure logistics are taken care of. So some of our largest deals that I managed were Facebook, FedEx, Advantage Sales and Marketing. I did Kodak and Blockbuster, so I might have been the nail in the coffin for those two as well. But yeah, I had a good run playing in that space.
Awesome. So in corporate America for a decade, start your company. You've done so many things. I'm just going to read some of them from your bio.
Okay.
You're a graduate of the Founder Institute. You've been through the Capital Factory Accelerator, the IBM Blockchain Accelerator. You do so many things. You're a mentor to women and people of color who are founding companies.
I do, yeah.
You're also a husband and a father.
Yeah, love that.
And I saw pictures you posted of your son on Twitter, and he has your exact face.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing.
It's completely, he's knocked me off.
He has. He definitely has. So you have founded this company. You're doing all these amazing things. But what is the backstory? Where are you from? How'd you grow up?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of community and people. I'm a group person. My family's Jamaican, so I'm a first-generation American. I was born in New York City, but shortly after that, around 4 or 5, we moved to Columbia, South Carolina, and that's where we were raised. So myself and my 4 siblings were raised in Columbia. My parents, both Jamaican, raised us. My siblings, my grandparents lived with us, and sometimes aunts and uncles lived with us and cousins in a 3-bedroom house on the northeast side of Columbia. And so growing up, I always thought, I was going to be a lawyer because I was pretty argumentative and pretty opinionated. And so ended up going to Clemson and studying economics and political science with the intention of going to law school. And ultimately, after doing some internships at some awesome law firms, the partners and different folks we interned with were like, come back and do this later. Like you can be a lawyer whenever you want. Go do something else. And so it was always really cool for me to always think through that, but really decided to lean in more into sales and relationship building. A funny story about me that kind of shapes a little bit about like how I think. When I was in Columbia, South Carolina, they wouldn't let me start school at the age of 5. They wouldn't let me start kindergarten at 5. So my parents did what any reasonable parents would do. They sent me to Jamaica And that's where I went to my first organized schooling.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so I came back from Jamaica with all kinds of ridiculous stories, but I came back from Jamaica with a really strong Jamaican accent. And I remember telling my mom by the time I got to school the next year, it's like, Mom, these kids think that I'm dumb. And then she's like, well, you're not dumb. And I was like, I know, but they don't understand me and they think that I'm dumb. And if they think that I'm dumb, I'm basically dumb. And that was because I had a hard time communicating. They couldn't understand me through my accent. And so I remember forging her signature to have a speech pathologist in elementary school. Because I really, really wanted to be understood. And that's the thing, like, about me. Like, you don't have to agree with me, and that's my whole opinionated and debating side. You don't have to agree with me, but I just want you to understand my point. And if you can understand me, then that kind of works. And so that's, like, one of the things that's kind of fueled me to this point is, like, helping create better understanding, not only for myself, but for other people who may feel like they don't have a voice in that way.
Wow, and all that because you went to Jamaica when you
I
were
know,
5.
I know, man.
For kindergarten.
And now I wish I had the accent. I think that would be so dope.
It really would,
I think my
right?
interviews would be lit. Like, I think
I'm
it'd
sure
be
your
awesome.
wife would love it too, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that'd be a blast.
That is incredible. So go to Jamaica, come back to the U.S., go through traditional public schools,
Right.
go to Clemson, go out into corporate America. What made you leave?
Yeah, so as an immigrant or kid of an immigrant, you're raised to go to school, get good grades, get a good job. Like, that's it. And then there's also something known as the black tax. And you think about this where no matter how successful I am, it's not just me creating wealth. I've also got to take care of back home. You're sending money. You're buying things for siblings. And so there was always this part where it was like, your job is to get a good job and to make a bunch of money. And so that's what I did really well. Worked at a local company here in Greenville and really got the opportunity to see not only sales, but product management, business development. I saw my income go from $30,000, I think was the first year, and then going all the way up into 6 figures. And so ultimately, I started to wrestle with 2 things. Number one, I was getting my MBA, and one of the things I was thinking through was, how do if I was going to start something, what would I be interested in starting and what would motivate me to run it when things aren't going great? And I said, well, I'm going to focus on sports because I love sports. As a kid, growing up, we didn't have a lot of stuff. We always had a roof over our head, but sometimes the water was off or the power was off. And so playing sports allowed us to get connected, and the other kids allowed us to run around and play with them. And so I look at that and say, sports allows you to connect regardless of your race, age, socioeconomic status, all this stuff. And then I looked at fanhood being the same way. As a Clemson fan, on Saturdays in Death Valley, I'm able to mix it up and have fun with these different fans who look completely different, whereas I juxtapose that against Sunday mornings, which I believe are the most segregated times in our country on any given day of the week by race, religion, socioeconomic status, and all these different things. And so I knew I wanted sports to be part of it. And so that was part one. I knew I wanted to do something on my own. The second thing is I was having a little bit of identity crisis. I travel a little bit. I traveled a lot, actually, for work. And I would sit down at a hotel bar and I'm having a conversation with somebody. And at the end of it, we say, man, it was good talking to you. Maybe I'll see you here in the next quarter. And we'd exchange business cards. And it always felt weird that the card I would hand had a different company's logo, a different person's email for me, a phone number that I didn't own. And I was like, the day I'm not at this company, I lose this entire relationship. I don't own anything in this country. And so those are the 2 things that really made me say, if I was going to start something, let's start thinking through how that would work. And so as I finished my MBA, literally I graduated on May 9th, 2014, and incorporated the company on May 11th. And said, I'm going to de-risk this. I'm going to work on it in the nights and the weekends. And basically said, all the hours that I was using for MBA, I'm going to just reshift those to working on this idea, which was Bandwagon, and say, let me just try and de-risk this and tinker a little bit. So that's really like what made me like start the company in the first place.
So how'd you get from, I really like sports, I like being a fan, to a company that leverages blockchain technology and everything else? How'd you connect the dots there?
Well, one of the things that we realized, so Bandwagon in its first iteration was a ticket marketplace, similar to StubHub. So where you go on, you can buy a ticket or you can sell a ticket. The main difference that we wanted to create was we wanted to have a little toggle button that says, sell this ticket to a fan of my team. What we found was with the adoption of the secondary ticket market, there was no home section or away section anymore. Everything was a checkerboard. And so we said, well, surely there has to be a Clemson fan that would be willing to pay this amount if they had access to it. So what if we could restrict that? And so literally that's what we did. We created a marketplace and had fans be able to list tickets and buy tickets, ran it for a couple of years, and it was good. But as we started to try and scale it, we ran into a problem where we talked to different teams and they said, yeah, we can't work with you. We have an exclusive agreement with Ticketmaster or StubHub. And so at that point, we said, well, then how are your tickets being sold on Vivid Seats and SeatGeek and all these different platforms? They say, oh, well, they just sell them themselves and they guarantee them themselves. They refund their customers if something bad happens. And I said, well, if that's the case, well, how do you know who's actually in the venue? Because if the data's not coming to you, then how are you getting it? They're like, well, we don't. We talked to a Major League Baseball executive who says they know 4% of who's in a venue on any given baseball game. 4.
Wow.
We talked to different folks who may know in the low teens. And so we said, well, this is an opportunity for us to not build this ticket marketplace where there are dozens of them. Let's build the Switzerland. Let's build the independent piece of this puzzle, which allows the event organizers as well as the ticket companies to play in the same sandbox. And so in thinking through the solution, we said this technology, blockchain, can help us do it. And it's important for me to always, kind of position it as like, we're not a blockchain company. We're not a ticketing company. We're focused on the end goal. The end goal is to help the event organizer know who's in the venue so they can curate that fan's experience. The way that we're doing it today is using blockchain technology. If tomorrow a new technology comes out, we'll evaluate that and move from there, because I think it's important that you don't spend time, what's the saying? Like, you don't stick with a decision because you spent a long time making it, even if it's a mistake. Like, you want to be able to be dynamic. And as a startup, we should be nimble and be able to move quickly. And that's what we've been able to do.
Cool. So you have this idea. It sounds amazing. How did you pay for all of this? How did you get to the point where there was a we and not just a you?
Yeah. So it was always we to me, because I wanted to make sure I demonstrated like how professional we were. And so even in the beginning, I remember getting like the really expensive, well, not really expensive, but not the cheapest option on Vistaprint for business cards. And I got a website. Like, I can't stand when I run into people and they're like, oh, I'm running this business. And they send a Gmail address because it's so cheap to get your own domain.
Yeah.
And so I got my own website. And then I remember getting a toll-free number. And I made sure, and it was so ridiculous. My favorite number is 7. And so all of our extensions start with like 700. And I'm not 701 or 700. I'm 702. And everything is all in this weird, like, it's always been like how do you project to be what you expect to be? And so that actually sounds kind of interesting. Yeah, projecting to be what you expect to be. And so that's really what we started as. And so early on, it was taking money out of my 401k. At the time, I was making a good bit of money in corporate America. And so I had a good bit of that saved away. And so it was a lot of savings, 401k, credit cards. In the beginning, it was really important for me to go all in and de-risk not only the business, but also de-risk myself. I knew that if I was going to be a technology startup that was going to need some capital, I needed to prove to investors who at the time I hadn't even met yet that I was 100% in on this. I was a person that you could put your money on, and that we were going to find a way to figure it out. So that's how we kind of got started in the beginning.
Cool. So you, with your own money, bootstrapping from the ground.
Yes, we've been very creative in all of our funding to date, from bootstrapping to, all kinds of funding sources. And so it's been really important, like, to understand not only the stage at which you get certain money, but also the expectations of what you do with that money. So, for example, when it's your money and it's your savings, you can do whatever you want. You can be frivolous, you can be frugal, but it's up to you. When we did a rewards-based crowdfunding campaign, so similar to Kickstarter, we did Indiegogo, though. We raised like $7,500, and that was reward-based, meaning that someone gave $100 and they expected a T-shirt or some type of a thing. So not only did I have to do the math on, okay, if we raise $7,500, what's the net? And it was like $5,000. I had to say, okay, well, that $5,000 is going to help me get to here. And I knew that was other people's money, OPM. And so from there, it was like, okay, well, I need to get to this point where I can have angel investor, and that angel investor is going to look for the next thing. And so it was really becoming a student of the game and understanding, like, different money means different things, and that you should be really smart about all of it, no matter where it comes from.
Oh, man. So many questions about this. This is awesome. So you start out using your own money.
Yep.
Then do you do, like, the Indiegogo?
Yep.
And then what happens next? How'd you get to, like, the next levels of fundraising?
Yes, I started using more of my money. There was never really a point where I stopped using my money, even like, a few years ago to put some more money in and sold my house. And so at that point, we realized, so from a timeline standpoint, I graduated in May of 2014, started the company, and was working on it in the evenings. And so I was working still my day job in corporate America, and randomly this company calls me and says, hey, we want to hire you. We'll pay you 6 figures. You work from home, car allowance, the whole thing. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So this is now summer of 2015. So I take this new job. They're paying me a bunch of money. I tell them up front, hey, I'm working on this thing on the side. Does that matter? And they say, nope, as long as you do your work, you're great. So I was like, great. So summer 2015, I start the new job. buy a new house in October 2015 in the suburbs. In December, I find out my wife and I are expecting our first kid. In January 2016, Clemson's playing for their first national championship, so I'm super stoked. I go out to Arizona, and we lose on a Monday night, which was a bummer, but it was a great season for the team. And then that Friday, I get back in town, and I got fired from my day job. The one I just went to 6 months ago, the one that I bought the house expecting the money, the one that we're expecting a baby, and the health insurance. And so at the time, I remembered, getting the call and was just like shocked. I'd never been fired before and was, I met all my numbers. I was beating my peers. I didn't understand it. And, regardless of how that played out, one of the things that I took away from it was that I didn't want to allow someone else to control my ability to provide for my family again. So I told my wife, I said, hey, we've got this much in savings. We've got this much in severance. I'll drive for Uber. I'll work at Lowe's, third shift. I'll do whatever it takes. This child will have health insurance, and we will be fine. And so at that point, I said, I'm going to do this company full time. So I got fired on January 15th, 2016. And took a nice weekend full of bourbons. And that Monday, I was trying to figure out the next step. And so I had a good friend of mine, a founder, who had been a founder his whole career. And I flew up to Chicago and spent a week with him and his wife and said, how does this work? Do I just wake up and grab my laptop and sit on the couch and put ESPN on mute? Do I set an alarm? Like, how does this work? And he's like, no, you set a schedule and it's regimented. And I didn't realize the level of discipline that was required of it until I went and spent time with him. And so that's kind of how we started. And next thing, got on the trail to fundraising.
Awesome. So you said you got fired. You had some amount in savings, some amount in, I don't remember the other thing you said. You said you had two pools of money.
Savings and severance.
Savings and severance. Was that like $100,000?
No.
Was it $50,000?
No. This was maybe $6,000, maybe $7,000.
Okay. So this was like you had to do something.
So from a timeline standpoint, So startup phrasing, and hopefully I'm not using many acronyms, but startup phrasing, there's something called cash flow and burn rate. And so cash flow is the rate at which your money's coming in and going out, and then burn rate is like the total amount of money you're spending per month. I knew that we were spending as a household something like $2,500, $3,000 a month on like living, like mortgage and all this other stuff. And so to know that going into February, I was going to have around $6,000 left, $7,000. It's like, okay, we've got 2 to 2.5 months of money. So that's going to put me out at like March, April. And so it's like, okay, how creative can we be? And so literally went on to my network and said, okay, let's see about family and friends investors and angel investors. And it was tough because most of my family didn't have money. And most of my friends were still in crippling student loan debt, so they didn't have money. And so it was really became a introduction to an introduction to an introduction that allowed us to get to that next phase. And so we ended up having 144 meetings that we took. And I was keeping notes on everything on this Google spreadsheet. And after the 144th one, I was like, it was a really bad meeting. And I was just like, I'm not going to keep track of these numbers anymore because I'm going to keep going. Like, I'm not going to stop. So why am I keeping up with these numbers? And then shortly after that, I got introduced to our first significant and major investor, and that changed everything. That changed the trajectory of the whole thing.
So had you done the Indiegogo, the crowdfunding?
Yeah, I did that in like 2014. Like while I was still like doing it on the side, I said, I want to build something that if this works, it'll change how we all experience sports. And so people were able to give $20 or $10 or $50 for just basically a passion project. And so that allowed me to kind of like do the research. I was really big on, and I don't know if it's like a complex or something I have, but I think that it was important for me to make sure that I looked like a reasonable and responsible person who was willing to do everything. And trying to make sure I eliminated any potential like gaps or issues that would have come up if I didn't do my homework.
Got it. So you had raised some money with Indiegogo. You had your own money. How were you making money in the business at that stage?
So I started consulting on the side, which was great. I was making good money consulting. Big shout out to Dave Stefanich for putting me on here in Greenville, another startup founder who's working at a company called Remedy now. So that was how I survived, and we put money also into the business. And then as the company at the time was a ticket marketplace, and this is 2014, 15, and 16, early 16, we were literally a marketplace. Fans could list their tickets, and people would pay them, and they'd download and print their tickets, and they'd go to the games. And so we had a great experience. You know, still to the day, people ask us, oh, can we get tickets from Bandwagon? And we don't run that anymore, but it's been really great to know that little idea that we had not only helped us understand the pain points of the market, but number two, it really helped us truly be a part of it and now open our eyes to what the larger market opportunity was.
I see. Cool. So you were doing all these things. You get introduced to your first investor. Why was that person interested in investing at that stage? Like, what had you done to get to that point where that person wanted to give you
so
money?
In short, the answer is nothing. I have an awesome mentor. His name's Tim Reed, and he was a mentor of mine. And Tim's like, I can't invest, but I want you to talk to this person. And this person, we do the email, and we get on the call, and I talk to him. He's like, well, I'm in the car for 45 minutes, so just go ahead and talk, and I'll listen to you. And I'm just like, okay, all right. And so we're talking on the phone, and we talked for about 45 minutes, and he says, okay, this is interesting, but I don't know the space really well. Let's just get some coffee. And so we met at the Starbucks in Clemson, I want to say a couple days later. And so I drive up to Clemson, which I love getting back to, and he's a Clemson grad too, and we're sitting there, and he says, the best question I've ever been asked. And he says, okay, Harold, let's say that everything happens the way you say it is. Let's say that you are 100% right. Then what are you going to do? And at that point, I was really kind of taken aback because I hadn't even thought. I mean, things had been going so wrong. I had never thought about what happens if things are going to go right. And I said, well, if things go right and I end up being successful, I'm going to take every bit of my time, money, energy, resources, everything into making sure that I change this wealth gap between generations, as well as trying to figure out these folks who just need a little bit of help. There's a lot of great programs for people who need a lot of help. But there's some folks who maybe their pride's in the way, or maybe they make too much, or whatever the thing is, that just could need a little bit of help. And if we could help those folks, it would really, drastically impact society and generations to come. And he said, that's exactly what me and my wife want to do. We started a school, or maybe it was a church down in Africa, and I want to invest $100,000. And I was just like, well, it seems like it'd be an okay amount of money. Like, in my head, I'm like freaking out, but I'm trying to like be cool about it. And he's like, I'm gonna give you $50,000. I'm gonna do $50,000 now. I'll do $50,000 later. And even the coolest thing, I mean, I found a note as we were moving to Austin over the summer. I found a letter where, as we were going through all the due diligence and stuff and the legal documents, he knew we were running out of money. And he wrote me a note, and I still have the letter. And he's like, hey, here's a loan. I think he loaned me like $5,000 or $10,000. Like, here's a loan. You can pay me back when you get it out of the company, but I'm really looking forward to doing business with you, and this will help you go. And so, like, him believing in us has really helped us. And so I appreciate Greg Smith a lot for all that he's done for our company, because we needed it at the time.
So Greg was the first investor?
First investor.
Wow.
Yeah.
So he says, I'm going to give you $50,000 now, $50,000 later. Did you have like all the legal kind of background in place and all those things?
No, unfortunately, because I was hard-headed, there's a lot of nuance between being an LLC and being a C Corp. And because I was funding most of the business, it was advantageous for me to be an LLC because of the tax write-offs. And so for me, I was just like, oh, we're an LLC. This makes more sense. Well, Founder Institute had always told us, if you're going to raise money from people, they're going to want you to be a C Corp. And we're like, oh, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Well, now we're at that point where that bridge needs to be crossed, and that costs money. So we had to deal with the legal costs of that. So that was challenging. But yeah, we at that point we said, okay, well, now we'll make the step, and became a Delaware C Corp, I think sometime that year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you raised that money. Did you go out and raise more money immediately? Or?
Oh yeah, for sure.
So what happens after you get that?
Yeah, so that was May of 2014. May of 2016. We got that commitment. We started talking to other investors.
How do you find these other investors?
So one of the biggest things I think has helped us has been Twitter. I think that it makes the world smaller. I get connected with people that I'd never would have met. And so I started following these different people on Twitter, whether it was Arlen Hamilton, who had just started her fund, or Kwame Anku from the Black Angel Tech Fund at the time. Now he has his own fund called the Black Star Fund. He invested. And so we have all these different folks. And so really we're just like, hey, we're doing this thing and you're trying to demonstrate traction. For me, I think one of the biggest things with investing or getting investment is showing that you're moving forward in progress. And so I think it was Mark Suster who said investors like to invest in lines, not dots. So if I meet you today and say, hey, my company's Bandwagon, this is what we're doing, this is our revenue today, these are our customers, you won't say, oh, I want to do $1 million today. You'll say, oh, that's cool, like keep me posted. And then next month I'll say, hey, this month we did this, next month we're looking to do A, B, and C. And then the next month, I do the thing I said I was going to do, and I tell you about it. And so from there, we're just kind of just lining up these dots. And so I said, okay, we'll go through this. The thing that kind of set it all off was that we got accepted to the Google for Startups, Google for Startups Black Founder Exchange in Durham. And so at that point, you're able to see Bandwagon's logo next to Google's logo. And so we're calling our investors. We're like, we're closing this round. And so if you want to get in, let's do this. And so we ended up raising a total of $310,000 in our first round, which we closed in like November of 2016, including Greg's $100,000 and some other investors.
Wow.
Yeah.
So could you explain for people what that means, what a round means, and
how
you start a round, how you close a round?
Yeah. So the biggest thing is that rounds basically indicate like a point in time. And so for us at that time, the company Bandwagon was worth, X millions of dollars. And these investors were willing to pay some money for a percentage of that X millions of dollars. And so with us, we were able to say, okay, we're going to take this much money in this round. So we knew that we weren't going to raise more, we didn't want to raise $500,000. We wanted to raise actually $300,000. We ended up raising the extra $310,000 because of a, little hiring trick I had in that. Our first engineer, people always think about like, oh, Harold, are you the software engineer that built it? It's like, no, absolutely not. I don't have that skill. But I knew someone who did, and I basically said, hey, listen, if you will build this in your spare time, your weekends, I will give you $10,000, like deferred compensation. I'll give you $10,000 if we raise $250. I'll give you $20,000 if we raise $500. And so we raised $300, and I ended up having one more investor come in and go to $310. And if you look at our like bank account, the very first check we wrote was to that software engineer who's based in Charleston, $10,000 to make sure that he got his money, because without him, we wouldn't have had a product. And so for me, it's like those types of things that, your word is so important. And so from fundraising round, we closed out that round. There was our angel round of $310,000.
Right. So how did you determine the valuation of your company? You mentioned Bandwagon was worth X number of dollars.
Right.
How'd you come up with that number?
Yeah, so at the time, I was really trying to figure out what the various valuations should be. I mean, we had heard from different folks, whether it was a local angel group that would say, oh, the company should be worth $500,000 or $800,000, which we knew that was wrong. And then we'd go to the Silicon Valley and they say, oh, the company's worth like $3 or $5 million. And we thought that was high. And so we tried to find a sweet spot in the middle around 2 or 2.5. I can't even remember exactly what it was. But for that, it really comes down to, what is it? It's like art. It's like, oh, is this beautiful? Is this, it's not as much science. It's like, oh, is this company worth this? And so that's how it worked in the beginning. When you don't have many revenues or IP, it's really like, all right, if this company goes out of business, we've lost $310,000 for these investors, and they were willing to take that bet. And now that we're, it's 2019, it's important to say, okay, these are our metrics. This is our revenue. This is our growth rate. This is our burn rate. Those are things that we didn't have back then. So it was harder to set a valuation back then. And really, we ended up doing a convertible note, which allowed us to say, convertible note allows me to say, Shantavia, I'm going to give you $100,000, and you in return will see that $100,000 is valued at either $2 million or a 20% discount on something less than $2 million. So that means that if the next person comes to you tomorrow and says, hey, Shantavia, I want to give you $100,000 and I think that you're worth $10 million, now there's a little balance to where you're able to say, oh, well, the first investor was protected. They took the initial risk and they're able to save some on that. So that's how we ended up doing it, just kind of kicking the can down the road.
Right. Cool. So you close your first round. And how soon do you start the next round? What is the trajectory of raising money for you?
Yeah.
So you start with your own money.
Yep.
You get your first you do a Kickstarter, Indiegogo campaign, crowdfunding campaign. You do your angel round.
Yep.
And then what? What is the trajectory?
Yeah, so that's where we made one of our first mistakes. There's always this saying of always be fundraising, and
Yeah.
I took that literally and thought people were constantly meeting with investors, and I told myself, I was like, well, I'm not going to do that because I need to be running the business. And so instead, I just put my head all the way down and said, early 2017, I'm going to work on the business. And so the challenge with that is that you need to still be doing those touch points with those investors and say, hey, this is what we did yesterday, and this is what we're going to do tomorrow. And then you show them what you did it. And so we ended up raising, I think, like a bridge round, which is basically a gap of like a round in between like a. So you normally have your family and friends round, then you have your angel round, then you'd have a pre-seed round, and then a seed round, and a Series A, Series B, and so on. And a bridge round can be in between any of those rounds, which is kind of like the company's not at the point they expected to be at, but the investors, the previous investors, and maybe some new ones, want to give a little bit of money to help them get over that, to bridge over that gap. And so we ended up raising a bridge round in 2017 that allowed us to get a little bit farther, where we said, okay, we're going to do more convertible notes. We don't know how much the company's worth. You don't know how much the company's worth. We'll still protect you all on that. And so we raised a little bit of money in 2017, and then we raised a little bit more in 2018, which was actually our pre-seed round. So 2018, we raised a full-on pre-seed round of like $500,000, had some new investors come in that were really excited, one of which found us on a podcast. Like I was doing a podcast called The Pitch. Did our pitch, and they reached out to me in my DMs on Twitter, which I said everyone should have Twitter. And she's like, hey, we've got this fund. Would you be interested in talking? I'm just like, of course. Mm-hmm. You know, this is awesome. She was a black woman, and I thought that was super cool. It was really important to me to make sure that the people on my cap table looked like me and also looked like these underrepresented groups, because one of the things I've had also as like a little bit of a guiding light is the PayPal Mafia. I'm enamored with the PayPal Mafia. For those who don't know, that is the original founding team of the early stages of PayPal. It's Elon Musk, and it's Reid Hoffman and Peter Thiel and all these different folks. And the wildest part is that in all of those people, there was not a single black person, and there was not a single woman. And so if you think about all the ways in which the PayPal Mafia now touches everything from tech to life and entertainment. Politics, right, exactly. So if you think about all that, it's just like, imagine how different the world would be if one of those people was a woman and one of those people were black. And so it was important to me to not only be mindful of that as I built my company today, but also to think through like, well, how does that ripple effect everyone else? And so it was really cool for me to make sure I talked to these different people, and we've been able to have a really, really diverse cap table because of that. Cool. Cap table being our list of investors.
So how many investors do you have now?
So we have like 27 total on the cap table, and that includes some of the early employees. And so we've been really excited to make sure we've kept it. It's a really clean cap table, really neat, but making sure we manage it using Carta, which I think is like a must-have if you're an early startup founder. And so, yeah, I think that we've been able to have the right investors come on at the right times when we needed them.
Mm. And how much money have you raised in total at this point?
Yeah, so at the time of this, we've raised just over $2 million, which has been such a journey. I think about the fact that we got our first check in May of 2016, and I think about the technology we've been building, and some companies have raised gobs of money in that time, but I think it's been partly on me not only trying to make sure I preserve some of the company and equity, but also that we're not raising more money than we need. Like, raise enough money to do the operations, raise enough money to grow the business, but we don't need to raise enough money to where we have an office in Austin, an office in Greenville, an office in Seattle, an office in New York. We need to make sure that our goal, one of the things we think about as the culture of our company, is we want people to walk into our office and be surprised by how few people we have working. We want them to see how scrappy we've been and how creative we've been with limited resources, because then it's like, wow, well, if we give them a little bit, like, they take that and stretch it a little farther. And that's something that Black founders specifically have been able to show that we've overcome, but also something that I, have personally as an immigrant and a child of an immigrant.
No, I love that. Gosh, so many good lessons there. Mm-hmm. One question I have for you is, I hear you talk about this. You've talked a lot about we. Mm-hmm. So who is we? What does your team look like?
Yeah.
How long was it just Harold Hughes? Yeah. How did that kind of come
So
about?
In the very beginning, summer of 2014, it was just me working, and I'd always have friends who would say, oh, I want to join your startup. And it was always some, like, we're out drinking or out partying. And I was like, this isn't serious. Like, you wouldn't reach out to Google at this time of night. Like, you would do it in the business hours and professionally. And so I said, if you're interested, reach out to me during normal business hours. And you know, most of the folks didn't do it, and so that was great because I didn't want them to feel like they were, doing it out of the relationship they had. I wanted them to actually be into it because I didn't want our relationship to be on the line when things got rocky. And so our first team member, it was a good friend of mine, Samotria Holmes, and she said, "Yeah, I want to do it. I want to get in." And so we went through the process. Said, "All right, you're going to be our first team member." So she joined, and then Lavonda, who was a good friend of mine, who also went to Clemson, she was helping with some legal work, and she's like, "Well, I didn't realize you were hiring people. Like, I want to get in." Mm-hmm. And so Sammy and Lavonda were our first two team members, and so that was the beginning. And then ultimately we had other team members that kind of came and went as we needed different pieces. But now one of the things I've been really smart about is not only thinking through the skills we need, but also the culture, also understanding what's going to be motivating to keep these people excited about coming to work every day. And so I'm really excited about the team we have, Lavonda and Sam and Hal and Nick and all these folks have moved on in these different great career paths and the things they're working on, they're passionate about. So now we've got our CTO, Hampton Smith, Dr. Hampton Smith, and he's running our software engineering team. We've got two engineers, one of them self-taught. She was a design person who now was making like her own jewelry, and she's self-taught and was the top candidate in our first hiring pool. And the second guy got his master's in electrical or mechanical engineering from Georgia Tech, and then went to the Carolina Code School and crushed it, and we hired him. So We're really excited about the team there. We've got a couple other team members we'll be bringing on shortly.
So one of the things I love about you, because I've known you since college, one of the things I love about you and your business is you've created like a really diverse team. Like you've got a little bit of everybody in your company. And that's something that's so important, especially, for people who are thinking about starting companies, creating a culture that is culturally competent, that looks like the world. And I just respect that you have done that.
No, I appreciate it. I mean, for me, it's such a no-brainer. Like if we're trying to build a global brand, or we're trying to build this technology company that has to be able to look around corners and avoid bias, I think it's so important that we have different perspectives. And so whether it's Hampton, who is a computer science PhD, all this different stuff, worked at Google, and then you've got Brittany, who is a self-taught software engineer, and then you've got Joe, who's approaching it from a mechanical engineering background, who spent plenty of time at GE. Those three people in a room are going to think through things differently and arrive at similar or dissimilar conclusions. And I think the way in which we go about it is super important. But then, going also back to the cap table on our list of investors, like almost 45% of our investors are Black, 22% are women. And so like we make sure to look at that veteran, LGBTQ, our cap table, our team will continue to be that because that's the type of company we want to be in the future.
Yeah. And you've attracted a lot of interest because of that.
Oh, yes.
So you've got like Arlen Hamilton, who's an investor.
Yep.
I saw that you pitched Mark Cuban in Dallas.
Cuban. Yep. Absolutely.
And so how do you manage all of that? So you get all this interest. Didn't you get an offer for acquisition?
We did.
You turned it down.
We turned it down.
How do you manage that? Why? Why did you turn down that offer? How do you manage getting all of this press, all this publicity?
Yeah.
With, the day-to-day, getting dirty in the weeds
with
the actual company.
I think the biggest thing is our focus and what our outcome is. Like my goal isn't and hasn't ever been to be a millionaire with this. It's to create a solution that allows us to impact many, many people. And so I don't know who said it, but it's like if you want to be a millionaire, impact 1 million lives. If you want to be a billionaire, impact 1 billion lives. And so that's the long view that we're taking. And so when we even looked at the acquisition offer that we had, it was a credible offer. It was part cash, part stock. And we ended up saying like, this isn't the right time. Like my family would have been good. But ultimately it was just saying, if this is what we're getting now, let's just actually run a little farther and go and take this to where we think we could take it. So that was a pretty easy decision for us to turn down. But even as we look at like managing expectations as whether, new customers or all the different things we run in the business, it's really been important for me to be able to think through what it is we actually want to accomplish. And if our goal is to impact the community and to make these live events truly diverse and mix it up and allow people to move out of their homogenous comfort zones that they would curate at their own houses, that's going to take work and it's going to take time.
Yeah.
And so we're locked in on that.
Okay. All right, cool. So was your team on board with that? So
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Our team was, the first thing, board looked at it and said, this is awesome, first off. So congratulations. If you want to take the offer, we want to help you negotiate a better one, like, more cash or whatever. If you don't want to take the offer, let's go raise some more money and go faster. And that's what we ended up doing. So, last year we raised our pre-seed round, as I mentioned, and ended up getting invited out to Dubai to demonstrate our technology. A lot of technology and advancements of applications are being done over there. And so it was great for us to get on the world stage. We came in 4th place out of more than 200 companies demonstrating how our solution could be impactful. And then we raised some more money and then deployed our solution in South Africa and worked with a customer in Sacramento. And so it really was a good jumping off point for us to understand, like, people want this. Let's make sure we give it to them.
So, so you've taken this company, you started nights and weekends at home, to Dubai, to South Africa.
To Estonia.
To Estonia.
Yep.
You went somewhere else in Europe recently.
I was in Amsterdam.
Yeah,
and
Amsterdam.
And The Hague. Is that
Right.
pronounced, I think?
I
don't
roll
know.
with it.
Yeah, right.
So who's helped you along the way? So you've mentioned some mentors.
Yeah.
How did you find those mentors? Who are these people who are helping you get from step to step?
Yeah, fortunately for us in the beginning, Next here in Greenville and really all across South Carolina, they connected us with a group of mentors. So it was a venture mentoring service or system, VMS mentoring. And so that was Tim Reed, that was Prashant, that was Paul Della Majora. And so those were our first mentors, like specifically for Bandwagon over this group. But then you just kind of like tap people to be these mentors. And so whether it's someone whose book you're reading, like I've just finished a new Ben Horowitz book, those are folks who kind of mentor you and they don't even know it. One of the things that I try and encourage people to do is be mindful of the difference between, knowledge and education. Education is pretty traditional. You're sitting in a classroom. You've got, you matriculate through this path. Knowledge you can find everywhere, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a TV show, whether it's a book. And to that same point, I always make sure to emphasize we need to treat knowledge more like a library and less like a vault. And what ends up happening is that I learned this thing and I don't want you to know it. So I keep it to myself because I think that if you know it, then it's less valuable to me. Whereas if you've got this mentality that, well, both of us know it, then we can both use it. And that, the more hands makes for lighter work. That's really the thing that we try and think through. And so as we built this company so far, it's been really like, how do we fill in the gaps? I think my superpower is that I know what I'm not good at. And so that's where I kind of fill in those gaps, and whether I add a team member or an advisor or a mentor, that's super helpful. But on top of that, the best mentors that we've had have been my peers. Clarence Bethea, who's a CEO and founder of a company called Upsy. They're based in Minneapolis. Denise Woodard, she's a CEO of a company in New York City, Partake Technologies or Partake Foods. Those are people I can call at any time of night. Sheena Allen, all these different people, I can say, hey, I'm going through this, or what are your thoughts on this? And they will be transparent. I remember a conversation that Clarence and I had, a tough conversation, where he had to say, look, I know that you don't want to hear this right now, but I want you to know this so that you can take the proper action. And so I was like, all right, appreciate you, bro. I'll catch you later. And we hung up, and I probably, was just like, kind of like dejected a little bit. But ultimately, it was the right information he gave me. And that's the thing that you need in good mentors, is that they're understanding, they know when they hug and they know when to push you a little bit. And so that's where we've got, the balance of not only founders who've been mentors, but you look at, the Christy Pitts and Arlen Hamiltons and the investors. So for us, it's been a labor of love where multiple people have been pouring into Bandwagon. And that's, by the name of the company, is Bandwagon. We want people in on this. And building it by ourselves just wasn't going to do.
Yeah. Cool. So you've got great mentors. Yep. You also mentor others.
I do.
You are now an angel investor yourself, right? Investing in other companies.
Yep.
So what does the future look like for you, for Bandwagon, for the mentoring work that you do? What is on the horizon?
Yeah, so for Bandwagon, I think the biggest and brightest thing in the future is deploying our solution all across the country. We just got a partnership solidified with the USL Soccer League, the USL Championship League, which the Greenville Triumph is a team in that league. And we're excited to be working with the Triumph and the rest of the league to really commercialize our solution. We want to make it to where your marketing messaging is curated and you're able to have personalization at scale so that we don't have this one-size-fits-all spammy marketing as fans and consumers. So Bandwagon's going to continue to work that way, whether we're doing it in the United States or also with our customers abroad. And then for me personally, I just think that, I've been able to think through the fact that this journey that I'm on isn't just for me. And that once I realized that this is a relay race and it's not just a sprint, I was able to take a step back and say, I can just help more people get to a better position to start than me just running as fast as I can, as far as I can, and getting tired. And so that's why I mentor, and that's why I pour into different people, whether it's I'm advising a company called Heirloom that's based in Austin, or as you mentioned, I angel invested in Partake, and we're looking at another deal, my brother and I. I think that angel investing and some of this stuff is going to change that generational wealth gap for sure. And then for two is that I think that it's important to really find ways to help people get a better starting point. So I'm explicit. I make sure I mentor Black people and women. And I think that's a group that I'm willing to fight for, that I relate to, and I want to try and help be in a better position than they would be. And so I'm super transparent on my social media. I tell my story. You don't see much fanfare because I think that it's important to know that beside the TechCrunch articles and beside the Forbes and Fast companies, there's some darker days or lonely days, and it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
And so I try and make sure we tell that story.
Awesome, Harold. Thank you so much.
Definitely. Absolutely.
This has been fun.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it.
So where can people find you online? Where can people read more about your work?
Yes. So if you want to check me out on Twitter, I am One Bandwagon Fan, ONE, Bandwagon Fan. And you can follow all of the stuff that we're building at bandwagonfanclub.com. You'll read about our newest product called Aura, which we're putting in front of lots of customers. And of course, we're, building our brand as much as we can.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening and watching. Harold, you have been amazing.
Thank you.
I have learned a lot. I know everyone who's listening has learned a lot. And one more question, Harold, for you. What advice would you give to people who are where you were in 2014, who are like at the very starting point? You mentioned you've made a lot of mistakes.
Sure.
And you've learned a lot of things. What is the final kind of piece of advice you would give people who are where you were?
Yeah, it's two things. Number one, it's to declare what you're going to do. One of that is, there's power in the tongue and speaking things into existence. And so as you put these things out into the world, into the universe, they kind of tend to come to you. So that's one. But two, that also makes people hold you accountable. And what we were able to do when I told people, hey, I'm going to start a ticketing company to help make sure we could protect home field advantage. Now people just randomly started sending me articles on ticketing and StubHub and all these different companies, which I thought was interesting because what that ended up having was I had really smart people, my friends, thinking about me when I wasn't thinking about the company. So that did two things. It connected me with these incredible brands like StubHub and Ticketmaster. But two, it had really smart people using their excess mental capacity to help my company get started. So I think that it's really important to declare what you're going to do because I think the universe has a great way of bringing it to you. But then the second thing, which I think is probably most important, is lean in and start with collaboration. Like, the whole sitting down with someone and saying, hey, I've got this great idea. I'd love to tell you about it. I'm going to give you an NDA. That's not a great way to start a conversation. It's like showing up to a first date with a prenup. It's a bit of a jumping into the gun. Be able to articulate what it is you do and what you want to do without getting into your secret sauce. And as, conversations go on, definitely protect yourself and they can talk to you more about all that stuff. But I think that it's important to make sure you lean in and start with collaboration because you'll go so much farther with people than you will alone. And that's been our story. And that's why I want to make sure to amplify that.
Awesome. So thank you all for watching again and listening. I'll drop some links in the show notes. Harold, I know you blog about your experiences. Yep. You write about your experiences some. I'll drop some links in the show notes to things about Harold and his company so you can check out what they're doing. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Shantavia Show. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment wherever you're listening. You can find me on social media everywhere, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and wherever else at Shantavia J ESQ. You can also visit me at shantavia.com to find a transcript of this episode, along with other show notes. While you're there, please be sure to subscribe to my email newsletter. The information shared in this podcast and through my other platforms is designed to educate you about business and entrepreneurship, and I love to do this work. While I am a lawyer, though, the information I provide is not legal advice and does not create or constitute an attorney-client relationship. The Shantavia Show is a Leverage Incorporated original. The show is recorded on site in South Carolina and produced at Sit and Spin Studio in Greenville, South Carolina. Original music and sound design is by Matt Morgan and Daniel Gregory. Mixing and mastering is by Daniel Gregory. And the video is by GVL Media.